It's exciting to meet somebody who I've always worshipped, who I've loved, who I've never gotten the chance to talk to. I first sort of picked up on him with the biggest hit in the world, the early 70s of Call Me, that every singer ever had to do. You weren't allowed on a stage if you didn't cover Call Me. But in 1963, along with Tommy Roe, here were the headliners, and these crazy kids from Liverpool were the opening act, the Beatles. Please welcome, for the first time to the Fest for Beatle fans, Mr. Chris Montez.
Hello, everybody. Or shall I say, hello there, Beatle fans.
Chris, forgive me for having to be a gimp here and sit down, so I
come
apologize.
on.
As friends have said, this is a lesson. Never go jogging and never go to Los Angeles. This is what...
That's where I grew up.
Exact. Strike one, strike two. What's a New Yorker doing in L.A.? So welcome to our little...
Oh, it's really a pleasure to be here today. I mean, it's a wonderful experience to see all these people playing nothing but Beatles songs, and I know a few of them, but every minute I hear these great songs,
47 years after that tour.
It's been that long?
We're here in a ballroom in New Jersey, packed to the gills, to talk about the music of these guys. I always describe it on the air like throwing a stone into a pond, and some magic happens, and the ripples never stop. They go on and on.
It goes on and on. It was meant to be, and it's a wonderful contribution to music.
When you first were told, hey, here's the tour, here's the opening act, what did you know about the Beatles at the time?
I knew nothing. All I knew is I was going to England to go on a tour, and I've never left Los Angeles, never left anywhere. And all of a sudden, I'm in this foreign land, and it took me a while to get used to their the way they spoke, and then all of a sudden, I have a rehearsal, and the guys are there, and we hang out, and I watch them rehearse, and then the first opening show, I mean, people were just screaming and yelling, and I watched them do, at the time, they had Love Me Do, and I used to watch it every night, sing Love Me Do, and they were such a wonderful, tight act, and I used to think, wow, that's pretty good, because I had just got through doing a major tour with Sam Cooke and Jerry Butler, Smokey Rob, all these black acts, and so they taught me a lot, and so I was ready to go, I was reared up, and I noticed that, when I'd finish the show, they'd open up, and then Tommy Roe would come in, and it'd be the half of the show, and then I would finish singing my songs, and it was wonderful reception, and the people were all crazy like we all are today. And it was a great experience, and what can I say?
I mean, the audience wasn't nasty to you, right? I mean, the audience was still there for you. I mean, you were the guy with the hit single, right?
Yeah. I had coming up the charts. It was like going up to number one, and they first American to come over there to do a tour like this, and Tommy Roe, of course, had his major hit was Coming Down. He was like number 5, and then the Beatles was just starting out. But I noticed that they were so good that I realized later on that they were doing all these bars in Hamburg and all that. That's where they got their experience, and they got to tighten up the group.
So many people send me tapes of their bands, and what do you think of my band, and listen to my band. And what I hear from so many people out there is, sort of some good playing and some good singing, but very tentative, and people aren't sure of their instruments. And it was one of my favorite moments when I talked to Paul McCartney and Pete Best and anybody who was ever with them in the day, of explaining, you have to understand that they played 7 hours a night, 7 days a week when they were in Germany. And as Pete Best said, we were either going to explode and quit, or we'd come back the greatest band in the land. If you get together once every couple of weeks with your buddies to jam,
yes,
would you agree? That's never going to get you forward.
Yeah, well, it's perseverance first, and then having a dream. I go out on every Thursday night where I live, and I go and jam for about 3 hours. I play blues with a bunch of blues people, and it sort of keeps me active.
Absolutely. Then you're going to do a tour, aren't you? You're going to Brazil?
Yes, I'm going to Brazil. I just signed a major contract to go over there and do an album there. Oh, I just finished the album, but released out there.
When do we get to hear it?
pretty
Yeah.
soon. Oh, and I must add, those of you British fans, I did a tour. I just recorded an album with a group called the Brothers. They were Joe Browns and the Brothers at one time. And I went back there and I said, why don't we do an album together? So I went back and I did a whole British album with nothing but a British group. So it came out great.
Excellent. You know, there's the other part, as I mentioned in the introduction, I don't know if you were here, and a lot of times hosting shows and bringing bands on, and, you know, the opening act sometimes, well, I shouldn't say sometimes, but more often than not is met with indifference, or some people are there, but they're talking, and so many times that opening band says, man, this sucks, this is terrible, how do you do this? And I always say, you know, the Beatles opened for Chris Montez. You know, Led Zeppelin was an opening act. Everybody was an opening act. You were an opening act at some point, weren't
Yes,
you?
I toured a lot of, many people, from Bobby Darin to, you know, every act you can think of, you know. I came out and did these tours, which were kind of rough. You got to remember every night doing a show, maybe 1 or 2 songs, but it's the touring and the hustle and bustle of the road, you know. But I was loving every minute of it. I mean, at least I got a chance to make $100 in my pocket.
To me, that's it, is that if this is what you want to do, there's a joy of singing, writing, playing. If the joy of that isn't in it, then what is the point of it? It's not about, oh, am I the opening, the headliner? You always strive for better, but you have to enjoy the process of doing it. When the Beatles were opening, did the guys seem nervous about it? Were they psyched about, you know, what was their mindset? What was the frame of mind?
Well, they were just ready to warm up the group, you know, and you'd hear sometimes the Beatles or Chris Montez, we want Chris Montez, you know, or something like that. But yeah, they were ready to go, just like I was. There was no big thing, you know. You've been on stage once, you've been on stage 100 times, you know.
Did you become close with any of them?
Oh yeah, I spent a lot of time with them. I got to learn their ways and had food with them, drinks with them, partied with them. You know, there was a lot of ladies around at the time.
I'm so shocked. I can't really.
Well, you imagine, I used to think, you know, try to get a girlfriend, you know, and have somebody to hang with. And when I got over there was nothing but girls, you know, all over the bedrooms. I mean, hotels full of women to see us, you know. So I was a young man, and I kept to myself pretty much.
63, how old were you on this tour?
It's just 17.
17?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
How about that, having your first hit and doing an international tour at 17?
Yeah.
That'd be overwhelming.
It was overwhelming. I can't explain it to you people out there or express, but it was a thrill. It's like taking a ride, and I basically love people, and when people come to see me or come and talk to me, I think it's a great honor that they like me as a person or as an act, not the other way around, because without fans, you're nothing really, you know. Without people, you're nothing.
Beautifully said. I couldn't say it any better. And I always say that on the air, and I mean it from my heart. I do nothing. It's for you guys. You guys are the show. I'm out in the street dancing for nickels if it isn't for you. So God bless you, and thank you for all the time that you listen. And for Chris Montez, as I mentioned earlier, I kind of pick up your story in the 70s when I was a young guy with Call Me.
Oh, yes. I sort of had a mishap with the record label that I was with, and I decided I was sort of embarrassed. I was thinking, well, there's people saying, okay, he thought he was something or he had a hit. Now where is he now, you know? And it's kind of, so I decided to just leave the scene and go to college and study music, to have kind of a background for music. And then I met this friend of mine introduced me to this individual, and the individual happened to be Herb Alpert. And
I've heard of him.
Yes, I think a lot of people have. I hadn't, you know, I didn't know who Herb Alpert was. And so he said, "What are you doing?" I told him I was going to school, and he said, "I'd like to have you for my company. Would you like to sign with me?" And I said, "Not right now. I didn't really want to get into music anymore." And a few months later, I came back, and I started recording with a staff producer, and I started doing a la Chris Montez rock kind of stuff. And the staff producer says to me, "You know what? Herb doesn't like what we're doing." I said, "Oh, he said he wants to speak to you. And I said to myself, uh-oh, here it goes. And he said, Herb said, I got an idea for you. So he started singing this song and went, if you're feeling sad and lonely, there's a service I can render. And I said, oh, my gosh. I don't know if I want to get into that scene, but...
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
I felt I was trying to be too...
away from that.
Yeah, I thought that they were trying to put me into a bag that was like real hip, like a la Sinatra kind of music, you know. And I said, well, I wasn't ready for that, really. And it became my whole network of music.
It's amazing to me how many times people have tried to sort of avoid, like, this, you may, and please tell me I'm crazy, that there are so many people I've met, though, that, like, try to avoid their song somehow. People have walked away from, no, I don't want to sing that. No, it's not really where I'm, and sometimes in life, a song just tackles you and says, I demand that you sing me. I demand that you be my guy. Come out. Rod Argent, Colin Blunstone, the Zombies. Colin did everything but walk out. He had to be almost held at gunpoint to sing Time of the Season. Wow. You know, Don't You Forget About Me, Simple Minds. Their lawyers were threatened with breach of contract if they didn't sing it. You know, and these are songs that are number one, that are lasted forever, and you sit there and go, wow, yeah, you know, and it's exactly. I don't know, but I wonder sometimes, like, it just this is it the muse, whatever. I want this to happen.
You mean as far as singing the songs?
Yeah, as far as
I think it's a mindset where you're at and where they're at, you know. Because when I got introduced to Let's Dance, I was doing ballads like Richie Valens and all that. And when he said, let's do this song, and I said, it's kind of corny, you know. It's not my style. And I think in reality, I didn't know whether I could do anything with it or cut it, you know. But, you know, God always has a plan, so that's what I say.
And you grew up in where?
In California.
California, right?
Yes.
Southern California?
I was born and raised there.
Right. And was there like a Richie Valens kind of like a that kind of vibe of, were you thinking more along like a Spanish kind of flavored band, or that kind of as far as going down that direction of going more ethnic?
Not really. Well, I must say that I grew up playing guitar with my brothers and sang nothing but Mexican ballads, you know, and rancheras, the up tempo, like a polka, like a German boom bam. That's how the Mexicans rhythm is.
Right.
And then I listened to the Platters and the Everly Brothers, and I used to sing some songs with my brother, and never thought about going into the music. I just loved it. And then when Richie Valens came on the scene, I said, oh, there's a Mexican who does rock and roll, you know, and he's real popular, and that's what intrigued me, and that's what sparked my whole life.
Fantastic, thank you. And by the way, I'm sorry I can't run around like Phil Donahue like I usually do, but if you have questions for Chris, if we could turn the house lights up a little bit, and I'd be glad if you don't mind raising your hands as we go along. We'll call on you and shout it out nice and loud, and be able to do some questions as well. Can we get, thank you so much. Thank you. Normally I get to run through the audience, and that's just not going to happen this year, unfortunately, so I apologize for that. Any questions for Chris? Yes, ma'am. She wanted to know, Chris, are you the youngest of 18?
Yes, I was. I was the youngest brother, yes.
Any other siblings in music?
Well, my brothers were all in music, but no one pursued the music industry. I think this just happened for me.
18 kids.
18 children my mother had.
Wow.
I can't believe it sometimes because I was the youngest one.
Or you're the youngest?
Yes, of the boys, yes. Of the family, really.
Wow. Yes. Yes, sir.
When you said you had trouble getting used to the Beatles' speaking voices, did you mean just didn't know their Liverpool accents, or you actually had trouble understanding what they said?
Oh, no, their accents, you know, the dialogue.
If you don't mind, I'll repeat. The question is, when Chris said he had trouble understanding their voices, was it their Liverpool accents or just understanding like what they were saying?
Yes. That's what understanding what they were saying, because I never realized this, but some people in England today say they go to other parts of England and they don't understand them because they got such a Cockney accent. It's just like, but pretty soon you develop a good ear for that.
Yeah, it came over here fairly quick. Yes. Yes, ma'am.
Oh,
Young lady would like to hear more about the time that Chris socked John.
I gave him a few socks. No. It was just something that just happened spontaneously. And he poured beer in my head, and I was in a good mood. And I don't take that kind of messing around. So I got up and started charging at him, called him a name, and we got into it a little bit and before they broke us up. But that's exactly what happened.
Who broke you up?
Tommy Rowe and the other guys.
And I'm sure, was it over and forgotten with? Like
Yeah,
right after?
sort of. It left a little bad vibes, but we got over it after a while.
Good. Yes. Yes, sir.
Oh,
Let me repeat this. And by the way, one of the reasons that Chris is here, and what you'll find out later, is that Mark and especially Brett Hudson have put together a remarkable documentary about Chris Montez and his journey, which we'll be talking about later upstairs in the rooms. And what this gentleman asked about is how he didn't wind up with the Beach Boys, if you don't mind explaining.
well, they used to live like a few blocks down from me. It was 5 minutes, and I used to go to school with Brian and Carl and Dennis. So I used to go to their house every once in a while, and we'd have open jams, before we became whoever we became. And I remember, I keep repeating, it's kind of funny because we were young kids, and my real name is Ezekiel Christopher Montanez. And Brian told me one day, he says, you know what, we signed a contract, and they're going to we're calling ourselves the Beach Boys. And I said, wow, that's interesting, the Beach Boys. And then I said, well, they're going to call me Chris Montez. And he said, oh, well, that's great. So that's how it formulated. And it's a great thing that know that people in that your neighbors became such great artists as Brian and Carl and the guys, So it's been part of my life, and it's intrigued me, really.
All right, so thanks. By the way, our dear friend Warren, who has held down the fort on and on. We're on the internet live as well as we're doing it. A question from the internet. Have you ever heard Cuban versions of Beatles songs, Cuban CDs of Beatles songs?
No, never have.
Okay. So that kind of sums up what he thinks about that. But
No, I just never heard it.
it is amazing. I have heard banjo Beatles, I've heard string quartet Beatles, jazz Beatles, smooth jazz Beatles, all trombone Beatles, harmonica Beatles, harp and glockenspiel. It's like it translates into almost every language in music. Somehow, whatever your form is, how can we do a Beatles song? And Curtis Stigers, a great jazz singer and sax player, was at the Blue Note a few weeks back and does this amazing version of I Feel Fine and makes this epic 15-minute jam scat sing about it. And he had said, this is a song from the great human songbook of Lennon and McCartney. And there was a few of the jazz police who kind of and booed a little bit. And he's like, oh, don't even go there. He goes, there's Gershwin, there's Cole Porter, there's Lennon, McCartney, and don't ever think there's a wall between any of this.
No, not really. I play a few of the Beatles songs, and it's funny because I'm a jazz fanatic. I love playing jazz. I play a guitar, and I've played some of their songs, and everything is harmonically right. People don't understand. It's a simple song, a simple melody, but the way they structure the chord progressions is like a jazz song, really.
It's amazing to me when I've heard people such as yourself, guitarists who are remarkable, and here are these kids who have no training, no musical training, no vocal training. The harmonies that they came up with, even by themselves, before George Martin even enters the picture. Like you said, the chord structure. George Martin also said, she's leaving home. He played the chords on the piano saying, now you would think that would take a lifetime of training to even come up with those chords, but they just heard it.
Yeah, I mean, the mind is phenomenal. Some people get inspired by a certain song or certain lyric or a certain title. That's how I get my songwriting, from titles or something that I hear someone say, and I say, oh, and then I work on it for a while.
Yeah, and you get inspired by something and then make it your own and say, wait, here's how I would present that chord.
That's right. That's right.
Right. Yes. Saw a hand up here. Yes. Did you ever play with Eric Clapton?
No, he's one of my favorite artists, Eric Clapton. I play a lot of his songs, though. Yeah, it's.
Good question. As a guitarist, who are your faves?
Well, for blues and rock, it's Eric Clapton, and then for jazz, it's George Benson. Joe Pass, who was a great jazz guitarist, who passed away several years ago.
Yeah.
And then you got the rest of them, I mean, they're all, don't get me wrong, they're all great. It's just being familiar with their music and what they say.
Right. Yes. Yes, sir, in the back, nice and loud. Oh, good question. On the tour, say in '63, it was how many acts were on the tour, and how long did the Beatles play?
There was, I think, 4 acts. There was a Helen Shapiro, and I can't think of a comedian or something like that. Then the Beatles would come on. They did about 30 minutes. I used to hear "Love Me Do" every night, and then Tommy Rowe would come out and did about 35 minutes, and the show would take a second break, and then I'd finish up with another 35, 40 minutes with all the screaming fans, which was wonderful.
What did that ever? I mean, I know how they got crazed as far as touring and stopped touring because they couldn't hear themselves play. They couldn't hear anything. There's a story. A listener just emailed me about he was at Carnegie Hall, standing by the side of the stage, and remembers John on stage at Carnegie Hall actually yelling, "Shut up!" And it didn't. Nobody even heard him yell it. It was just part of the wash. And did you have that experience? Did you ever think to yourself, God, what are we doing here?
Yeah, I mean, because every time I come on and they come on, or we all came on, it was just constant screaming. And, you sing some songs and it was screaming, and everybody was having fun, of course,
Yeah. You don't want to stop the audience from having fun. I always wondered on the air, and I'm serious, that if where sound recording, where the stage sound is now, where Paul McCartney can play Citi Field and hear himself and everybody in the upper deck can hear him perfectly, if that sound reinforcement was at the level back then when you were touring in the early 60s, would they have kept touring? Would everyone have kept touring because they would have been screaming, but at least the music would have been above all the screaming?
I think that's hard to say, because I think the fame, they probably got burned out, after a while with the fame, couldn't do anything anymore because their normal life was just having fun and playing at bars, and that changed,
I mean, at that point, could you guys go out and, like, when you were on the tour, could you go into town? Could you go around or go out and eat dinner, or no, you had to be locked down?
No, we had to be in a hotel, and mostly from each show, we'd have to run into the concert hall, because people would be standing screaming for us, If it was an exciting time, I mean, I wouldn't want to live it all my life or even again, but I'd rather just like it is for me now. And I think it's wonderful to be able to meet your fans and talk to them instead of, chaos.
Right. I mean, I remember that quote when they went to Australia. And remember the reporters asked John, "What do you think of Australia?" And he said, "I don't know. I haven't seen Australia. I hope someday to come back and actually see Australia. I've seen a plane and a car and a hotel and a thing, like the line from Hard Day's Night. I've been in a room and a car and a room and a car and a stage and a room.
Yeah.
That was life, wasn't it?"
Yeah, I had that experience again when I had Call Me and The More I See You, and I went to Brazil. And when we landed, I see this, a bunch of people, and I was thinking, wow, there must be a diplomat on the plane here, because it was a lot of people. And when I get off, I see this big sign. I didn't see it from the plane. It says, "Welcome, Chris Montez." And I mean, it was chaotic. I had 4 bodyguards with me all the time, and I kept telling the bodyguards, "Don't push the people away. They want to sign." But they were rude to the people, and I don't understand that. And I got a good taste of that, and thank God for that.
That's kind of the downside of it. That's definitely the negative side. I mean, it's fun, but they're worried about your safety.
Yeah, I guess so. It's too bad it has to be that way, but I guess.
One last question, if we want, for Chris Montez. Yes, sir.
Pardon?
Sorry, what was that?
They opened up for me. I never opened up for them. That's the way it was, you know. It was just part of that time in music history. I never thought that would happen, you know. But the Beatles were just coming around, and I was just coming around, and that's the way they put the show because of the chart action, you know.
It's the law of the charts. Chris, you going to stay around for a while
Yes,
and get to talk to some people?
I'll be signing some autographs out there. And
I'm going to get you some 4 bodyguards to smack everybody around and keep them away from you at all
No.
times. Right, what a joy to meet you, and it's been. Thank you for coming to our
Pleasure.
home, Chris Montez.
Thank you very much. It's been
Thank
an
you
honor.
so
Thank
much.
you. Bye.
Give us a couple of minutes, and we will set up for Mr. Bruce Spicer. And lo and